Somehow, a couple of days ago, I reached 400 subscribers. And a massive, massive thank you to everyone who subscribed. It has meant a lot, even if it's just 400 subscribers. It is quite. I've never got this many. It's quite surreal. That 400 people. But anyway, enough of that. I decided to mark the occasion by allowing people to submit questions for a Q&A, and 22 of you have responded, which is quite a lot actually. So we're going to go through every different question and try and answer them. This may be quite long, but just look out for your question if you're one of them, and if you want to learn more about me, if you want, I don't know why you would, but if you wanted to, then you can watch the whole thing. First lot of questions is from the one, the only STX, and they've asked how long a video takes to make. Probably about 2 to 3 days, but I'm more likely to upload a video that takes 2 to 3 days. But there's a huge, wild variation. Some videos take about months to create, some 30 minutes, like test videos, and some 4 to 5 days, like some a week even, like silly ideas and PowerPoints, but probably on average 2 to 3 days. What browser do you use? I mostly use Chrome. I like Firefox, but it seems to be slow a bit for some reason. Maybe I haven't updated. I will update it. I like how it links with my YouTube account and Gmail and everything. That's the only reason why I stick to Chrome. I still love Firefox, but I use it on my other computer more, especially on my Linux one. PC specs, please. Well, I have a 3.7 gigahertz AMD Athlon, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and 4 gigabytes VRAM Radeon 550, and a terabyte hard drive and extra storage. So, not the most powerful computer, but it's decent. Next lot of questions is from Althreeska943. Do forgive me if I didn't pronounce that correctly. Why did you want to create PowerPoint OS? Well, it all boils down to I saw a couple of guys doing it on YouTube and I thought, gee, I'd love to be able to do that. So I decided to set up on my free time and thought, okay, I'm going to try and make that. And eventually, through years of experience, I got to that level. Pretty much it. How would you like to start your first video after Q&A from 400 subscribers? That's going to be a bit of a secret, but I'm just going to say it's topical. Would you create PowerPoint OS for anyone or just for you? That's an interesting question. Don't worry, I won't kidnap you. um, well, I create PowerPoint OS just for the kick of it, really, because I know it's annoying your code not working. That's a given, really. If you're coding something, you're gonna make mistakes, but it's the satisfaction of doing it in the end, getting it right. You think, damn, that's cool. After you've done it all, the feeling that you've achieved something, that's what I get out of programming. I get that probably if I move on to more advanced programming, that's going to be more and more scarce, but when it does come, I like the feeling of being able to achieve something like that. I like achieving stuff, basically. Would I create it for anyone else? Well, it depends what you mean. Like, if you meant like someone requested I make a PowerPoint OS for them, like for them to use, I would include lots of features and have a very good workflow. If it was just for the sake of it, as someone thought, oh yeah, can you make a PowerPoint OS for me? Then I don't know. I've never had that request. I don't quite get what you mean. And thanks for the congrats. Hexa is next, and they've asked what's up next after Windows 95. This is a common question. Um, well, I'm thinking of creating Windows 7 in PowerPoint, but if I can't do that, if PowerPoint gets a bit laggy, because there's a certain thing about blurring windows in the background. It can work, but it would be quite slow, and it's possible, but it could go wrong. Windows 95 PowerPoint worked because it was barely on the edge of PowerPoint being able to do it. And it's partly down to my stupid coding as well, because I did something very inefficiently. But it's possible, but I'm going to give it a go and see how far it gets. The thing that's right after Windows 95 though is confidential. Although I'm going to be starting off on Orbit OS 2 as well. How did you start with VBA? Well, interestingly enough, I learned at school how to code. Python was the first thing. We were doing Turtle. I made unique patterns, and I thought this is quite fun actually, because I don't know, coding appeals to me. It's it's the amount of creativity and power you get with code, because it's the bottom line of everything on the computer. Really, everything relies on code on the computer. If you can command that, then you get quite a lot of enjoyment out of just creating weird and wonderful stuff. Um, that's why I'm trying to learn C and get to the not well, get it lower level, closer to assembly as possible. But how I started with VBA, well, I saw videos of people making PowerPoint OS, and I thought I could give this a go. So I found this code on the internet on how to create a printer dialog for Power. Of all the things I could have done, I looked up how to create a print function, and it came up with how to print the slide. And I thought I could read that code and I could understand it somewhat, because Basic, the Visual Basic, the language that VBA is based on, it's it has a sort of English vibe to it, because it has English words in it. It's not just symbols, and if you saw it, you could kind of make sense out of it. So I thought, okay, I may as well try and learn this. So gradually, almost without realizing it, I didn't really start in a specific place. I thought, oh, I wonder what this would be like, and how I would do this, and looked at different bits of code and began to pick it up, almost like picking up a spoken language, really. You did what many people seemed impossible. Thank you so much. Charles has asked, what software do you use mainly for all your videos? Well, I obviously use PowerPoint for stuff, so this is what I'm working on right now, incidentally. And then I also do my logo design and stuff in PowerPoint, because, I mean, I'm just most familiar with it, really. And if I can do things as quickly as possible, it will be able to be done in PowerPoint. I use GIMP for other stuff, but mainly PowerPoint. For the editing, I use HitFilm Express, and sometimes I use Resolve, or I'll use Shotcut, whatever's on hand and available. And for the music, I try and do all the music myself. In fact, I don't think I've borrowed any tracks at all. Um, and I use LMMFs for that, and it's Linux Multimedia Studio, which is a very nice piece of software. Although they need to fix some bugs, but Diamond Life has asked, what was the first PowerPoint OS you ever made? That was two slides linked together by a hyperlink. And I thought, wow, that looks like I clicked on this and it looks like I opened a menu. Wow. But back then, it was quite a cool thing. I didn't know PowerPoint OS existed. In fact, I thought I made it all up. Um, but I thought I made it up from scratch. It was a new thing. Then I discovered it went all the way back to 2012. And then, recently, I've discovered it went all the way back to 2007. So it's been around for quite a while. But literally, it was just two slides linked together. I want to make sure, by the way, that I know these aren't actual operating systems. They're obviously just PowerPoint presentations, and you can't turn them into exe files and boot them up. I mean, you could if you, but not really. You'd need to, yeah, and definitely wouldn't be able to run them on the low level. Certainly not. Don't quote me on that though. Of course, they're just ways of visualizing what we think operating systems could look like, or if we can't get to that level, what we just making up our own operating systems to see what would happen, or just trying to make an operating system and seeing how far we get. It's quite an interesting thing. It's an expression of creativity, and that's what I love about this. Digital Shark YouTube has asked, how much time do you put into making PowerPoint OSs? Compounded probably quite a lot, because since 2018 I spent about 5 months on dating board, and then about, let me think, 6 months on Orbit, and then 7 on, it keeps going up, 5, 6, 7 on Windows 95 PowerPoint. So I spent quite a lot of time, but that's sparsely really because I have a lot of other things going on in my life, a lot of other hobbies. I like writing, I like drawing, and programming. Oddly enough, it seems like because I upload to YouTube PowerPoint OS videos that I am mostly a programmer. That could be. I mean, it depends. Sometimes I'm mostly a programmer, sometimes I'm not. But I don't actually spend hours and hours a day programming. I spend about 1 or 2 hours and then I go and do something else really because you can't really focus on that for too long, otherwise it drives you absolutely nuts. And it's just like a side thing really, but now that I find it quite fun to do these. I'm beginning to spend more and more time doing them. But for each individual project, if you're asking, if that's what you meant, probably I usually spend time on longer projects. I don't usually make smaller projects. If I do, I never finish them. So I worked on a version of Orbit OS 2 and that didn't get anywhere, so I just left that. Then I started again, then it didn't go anywhere. Then I started again, then it didn't go anywhere. I think this is the fifth time I've tried to make Orbit OS 2. Because I keep discovering new things about VBA, and I thought, hang on, I should make it because it's supposed to be the most tightly well programmed thing I've ever created. And if I learn something new about VBA, then I have to undo everything I've done, so I may as well start again. Um, would you like more PowerPoint or Keynote? Very interesting question, but I've never owned an Apple device or had a Mac. Only used a Mac at school, and I had to play around with PowerPoint for Mac, which was quite cool. But I've never actually used Keynote. It sounds really cool piece of software. I really want to get to use it, and I've seen Keynote OSs like PowerPoint OSs. Um, I've heard Apple Script as the equivalent of VBA, but I really don't know that much about it, and I don't know if it will work or not. I have no clue. I'm not sure if you can stop people using the arrow keys to go between slides either. That's why LibreOffice OSs don't really work because there's no way to override that. If they do add that feature, I'd love them to add that feature. But in the meantime, that's why that doesn't work. But I can't really offer an opinion. I'm sorry, I haven't used the other. Do you like making PowerPoint OSs, or do you prefer things like Python and C++? Well, I don't only program in VBA, obviously, and I love Python, and C++, I'm trying to get to learn it, but there's so much stuff in C++. There's so many features, it's quite overwhelming, really, but I'm beginning to learn about classes and stuff like that. I'm quite a noob when it comes to actual programming, proper programming. They're very different realms. PowerPoint OS is very graphic, so graphical. You have shape libraries and things like that. Instantly, you're drawing stuff to the screen. Whether in Python and C++, you don't have much. It's more about console stuff, really. When you get started, you're just making your first Hello World program, but that it doesn't necessarily make it boring. You can create. I created recently a console game. It was quite fun, and well, it's not good to make it in Python because Python is quite slow. But if you make a C++ console game, it's quite fun to make. It doesn't detract from the funness of programming if it's console based, is what I'm trying to say. But which I prefer, I don't really know actually. They're very different realms. Bents is up next. About when will Orbit OS 2 be released? Well, I've no idea really. I've just got started with it. And I'm experimenting with dragging windows and stuff like that. So it's it's going pretty well, but I'm not gonna create a release date this early. Can you make a Visual Studio in PowerPoint? Well, my friend Danny, who's Daniel from PPT Games, he's making Game Maker PPT, or was making Game Maker PPT, and it's basically like a Visual Studio. I'm planning to add that in Orbit, and I was one of the first people to realize that you could do something like that. One of course, I wasn't the first. With a programming language like ZekOS Studio. Yeah, so I created OrbitOS Studio a couple of years back, but I tried to get it working, but there was so much in it that I wasn't experienced enough to create a proper, fully blown programming language, especially not in PowerPoint. But I probably will add it in OrbitOS 2. It just won't be very feature-rich language because I'm not so good at making languages and stuff like that. It's quite creating a programming language is from anecdotal evidence is quite an undertaking. Will you make more PowerPoint tutorial videos or PowerPoint OS test videos? Yes, definitely. I will be making those as a core essence of the channel. You'll see a lot of PowerPoint OS test videos and tutorial videos. Well, you know my Windows System tutorial, I thought I rushed that a little bit because it's a straight recording for 50 minutes and it's alright, but I could have made it more clear, and I think there's a better way that I could be doing it. So I'm working on a much better Windows System tutorial. If you have been making the Windows System tutorial and thought it's a waste of time, don't worry, I will make an equivalent part 2 for that as well. So it'll be 2 Windows System tutorials, strangely. Cat21. How long have you been doing VBS and making PowerPoint OSs for? About since 2018, really. If I can remember correctly, I started about May 2018, I think. My first one was in February, but I didn't post anything to YouTube because I thought it wasn't good enough, really. What do you plan to add in your next PowerPoint OS? That's a huge question. It depends which PowerPoint OS, because I'm going to be releasing a lot of them at the same time. I've got currently about 3 at the moment, and that number's just going to increase. Feature-wise, I'm looking for creating more productivity applications, but a better workflow. So instead of having a taskbar that slowly goes to the next thing and something, I want a very quick to use PowerPoint OS you can do things very efficiently with, because I don't want to repeat the same mistake I had for Windows 95 PowerPoint, which was it was extremely slow at times, and I don't want that to happen for the next ones. How long does it usually take to edit a video? To edit a video specifically, it takes about it depends. Sometimes I edit as I go along, in which case I don't know at all. Sometimes I record all the footage and I don't really do that actually. I don't, unless it's a one take video. I don't usually edit, so I don't really know. Taking and editing a video together takes about 2 to 3 days, as I mentioned previously, but I don't usually record and then edit. Lap has asked, how did you get so good at VBA? So good at VBA? Am I? Well, I mean, I just learnt as I went along and learnt more and more and more until I got where I am now. Coffee Exion has a Pog. Yeah. We? Nope. PPT? Yeah, obviously. I'm a furry. Okay, as you can probably see, I'm not very witty. How did you come to the whole PowerPoint OS making, designing, and coding by RapidsDE? I've already answered this, so pretty much I saw it, thought it was cool, and started doing it. How old are you? I'm not really going to disclose that publicly, but you can make a guess, I suppose. Can you, or at least try to, speak a little sentence in German? Sorry, I'm just curious on how your pronunciation sounds. Interesting question. This is quite unique. So I did German for 2 years, and I've mentioned that I did German for 2 years. I don't know what to say, really. I promise I don't have Google Translate open, okay? I promise. I don't know what to say, hang on. Ich habe für, how many years? 2 Jahre PowerPoint OS, gemacht. There you go. Is that right? Dongvan has asked, what PowerPoint OSs will you make in the future? Well, I've pretty much said that already, but I'm just going to make Windows 7. I think of making maybe Windows 10, OrbitOS, and a secret project that you'll see in a couple of days, maybe. Can you beatbox? If so, do it if you can. Okay. Yeah, I'm not brilliant, but I can sort of do it. What PowerPoint OS do you think is the best? Ooh, okay, this caught me off guard. I don't know. I don't want to offer an opinion. I'm just gonna say which one I like. I'm not gonna say if it's the best, but the most inspirational PowerPoint OS. Oh, actually, I've had several major inspirational PowerPoint OS. I'm only counting ones that I've done before I made Windows 95 PowerPoint. So and Orbit OS and stuff. So probably Luna 4 was one of the biggest ones. eStar OS, I love the Linuxy design of it, and I don't really know. I think those are the main two. And of course, Presentasia, definitely, but that's a given. Lario has asked, can you make Mac OS 8? I think that's just a request. I could do, but I don't have Mac OS 8 or have used it, so I don't know. I'll have to get a Mac, really, to be able to properly do that, because looking at from videos, I don't really get the sense of the operating system, but I could do that. I could do that, actually. That's a good idea. Culture has asked, meaning of life, and I do remember you, by the way. Oh, meaning of life. I don't know. Okay. I was gonna say something and I thought not to. Where did you learn VBA from? And first time using PowerPPT. So I've already answered this really, but I'm gonna quickly sum it up to first time using PPT. Nobody asked that. Well, I used it for some animation. So when I was about 6 years old, I first used Microsoft Word, and I went home and I said, Mum, what's PowerPoint? And she showed me PowerPoint, which she was using for interior designs. So I went on to PowerPoint and I thought, this is pretty cool, because I hadn't used software before. It was mind-blowing, just using software as it was. And so I've actually been using it since I was 6 years old. That's a long time. That's almost a decade. No, it isn't a decade. Mimka has asked, how did you become a person who... But yeah, I've already answered this, really, but... yeah. The amount of times I had to said that. Jerka086 has asked, I hope I pronounced that right, can you make a PowerPoint OS with me? Okay, this is a weird request. I don't often get requests like that to collaborate. If that's what you mean, I'm not sure, really. I don't know. I don't want to turn anyone down, but it's just that what I found is collaborating with people is quite hard, because within PowerPoint OS, it's sort of an art that everyone makes their own. So if you're a PowerPoint OS creator, your method of programming is definitely going to be different. It's like every snowflake is different. Even with someone who is quite similar to me as a person, that I try to collaborate with, we all have very different ways of coding, and they're not really compatible. So it's quite hard to team up in the creation of PowerPoint OS. But I really don't want to reject someone for that. Oh my god, I feel so bad. Anyway, Grumpy Penguin has asked, why did you start to code? Because I did it at school, really. That's pretty much up. I love your channel. Oh, thank you so much. You light up. Oh, thanks. Zophie or Zophie? I don't know, sorry. How did you get into make pretty much the same? I've already answered these questions. Low polygon design. When will Orbit Horizon be likely to be released? That's a good question. I think to be likely to be released, it usually takes about 4 months, maybe. I have no idea. I'm so early into development. It could be any time. Have you considered making operating systems in other Office software? Yeah, this is a very good question. LibreOffice and Google Slides. So Google Slides, I haven't really found an equivalent of VBA yet. I think there's a JavaScript or something, but still, I've never found a way to override the keys to stop people using the arrow keys to bypass stuff. So it's quite hard, because if you click somewhere accidentally, you could easily go on to the next slide and stuff. LibreOffice, the ActiveX controls don't work, because they're not ActiveX controls, they're form controls, and when you go into slideshow mode, they just freeze, they don't work. Is the Star Wars fan film finished? I'm still working on that. It's good that you bring that up, because I haven't posted anything about it. It's kind of a secret thing. But it's not really a fan. It's turned into... It was originally a Star Wars thing. Then it was a Star Wars and Doctor Who thing. And now it's a Star Wars, Doctor Who and James Bond thing. So, it's a complete mess. I might have to re-edit everything. But I'll start updating you on the progress I'm getting. And it's quite hard to do things only in HitFilm Express. They look really cheesy. And I tried to make this Dalek, and I couldn't quite create it because HitFilm Express isn't meant for 3D modeling and stuff like that. Because I was making it out of planes, you see. I was creating an octagonal Dalek skirt thing. It didn't work at all. But I'll have to use Blender, really. But it's worth investing time in. It's quite fun, and you learn a lot. And finally, TWG Studio 10. What's your first PowerPoint OS? Well, I've already answered that question again, but it was pretty much 2 hyperlink slides, and then it was an anime. In fact, there's a whole video of the evolution of my PowerPoint OS that you could watch. When did you start to make a PowerPoint OS? Again, I started back probably February 2018, probably. And how much time do you use to be this good? Well, I mean, I've only had 2.5 years maximum of doing all this stuff, so I suppose you could use that as a timescale. I'm out of question ideas, fair enough. And that takes us to the end of all the responses. So I'll probably do these every time I get every 100 subscribers, basically. These are quite fun to do. There's quite some strange questions in there that I didn't include, and they're quite thoughtful and interesting questions. Although I probably will leave out the repetitive ones because this has taken us up to 25.5 minutes of total answering of questions. If I've left out all the repetitive ones, I could have cut it down to about 15 minutes. But I like answering every person individually. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'm sorry if your response wasn't included. I tried to include everyone, but if your response had some questions that perhaps are a bit too personal, then I probably wouldn't have included it. But thank you all, and I'll see you in the next video.